All right, and we're recording. So yeah, Kamala just got tabbed or tapped in for the VP. Um, I thought it was a pretty bad pick, especially considering the events we've had so far with the protests and or I guess some have characterized them as riots too, but whatever you want to call them. So yeah, I am interested. What are your thoughts on the VP pick?
Um, to start with positive, I guess, I'm glad that it's somebody that is, in comparison, youthful and energetic. since that's the big chop on Biden is his, I don't know, his stamina and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
that's the plus side, is that it's somebody who's on that end of that spectrum. But I I told somebody the other day that in an email chain with some college friends of mine that in another world I would go after her for her past on, uh, you know, her hawkishness on marijuana convictions and like just the crime bill and things like that, and that I would probably not be too thrilled because of that. But
Right.
I mean, I don't know. It's it's hard to forget that stuff, but I guess at this point, because of the way I think about the current administration and stuff like that, I guess I'm open to her coming around or turning a new leaf or trying to show what her um, actions would be like now versus then. So
Right. I yeah, that's the first place that I go with it is she's got a pretty terrible record with the marijuana and um not to get on Tulsi Gabbard yet cuz I am interested on that topic because I do dig certain aspects of her. Definitely not the like more left-leaning economic views and like um I don't know, the more the parts of her that or the views that she shares with like Bernie and Elizabeth Warren, I'm not as huge of a fan on. But as far as her being pretty big like anti-war, I think I definitely thought she was a strong candidate in that way, and she's principled, and I see her as a genuine, honest candidate. But anyways, when she was digging into Kamala in those debates, which I didn't watch the Democratic debates, I honestly should have, because I think it probably was more entertaining than I would let on. But
if it's worth anything, I didn't watch a single one. So
yeah, I mean, I watched the clips and just like the highlights, and I
oh
guess
yeah, I mean
that was my way of saving time.
I looked at Twitter after, but I just I don't know. It's not that I haven't in the past, but I chose not to this time around.
Yeah, I mean, you're not necessarily really gaining valuable information as a voter from watching the debates.
Right.
I
Well, that's not to hijack that point, but I mean that's a lie. I watched the first debate that Andrew Yang was in, and I don't know if you knew, like I was a huge fan
Yeah,
of
yeah,
Andrew Yang, and after I saw him not really take any initiative and not be given any time, that's when I kind of was like, okay, I'm not gonna put my time into this.
right. I guess yeah. In some respects, it's definitely not a waste of time as a voter, or you know, I guess just a person who's interested in what's going on in the world.
Yep.
Um, yeah, it's not necessarily a waste of time in that respect, but
So yeah, back
yeah,
to
as far as well, that's interesting because that's when Ron Paul was a candidate and being someone that I actually was like pretty strongly like behind, like one of the very few politicians who I felt like I would pretty much defend all around. Like I wouldn't just be like, what, I'm not going to defend this dude because he deserves every bit of criticism. But anyways, like he just got totally shat on by
yeah,
the right wing media and political establishment when he was, I mean, even Stephen Colbert, I remember him talking about it, and he was like, "You guys," he was joking with the media at the time. I think he was getting interviewed something like Fox News somewhere, and he was just joking with them about like, you guys can say his name, and actually he made like some joke about Rumpelstiltskin saying his name 3 times. I don't know. Anyways, yeah, he probably, I didn't watch the Andrew Yang, but I mean that's kind of how the debates go. So I think it's yeah, there's a lot of interesting things to be seen in how they approach certain candidates and whatnot, and kind of shit on other candidates. But
It seems a lot more scripted now than, and maybe it was just because I was young and I didn't understand it back then, but it seems like there's definitely like an end point that they want to get to now, and they steer it towards that, rather than it being like an open forum.
yeah, well, actually, I mean, staying on that topic, and being that we're, well, hopefully going to have debates, honestly, not to get into too big of a tangent, but I do want to go on record for saying I honestly, my opinion, based on what somehow, I don't know how Donald Trump, at least, from what I saw, and I mean, he just demolished the other Republican candidates. I mean, for like Jeb Bush and whatnot, he's just a weak, a rhetorically weak, and he wasn't a formidable opponent as far as debating goes. But I mean, Marco Rubio, I forget who else was up there, but there's some. Rand Paul, like
Ted Cruz,
I mean,
John Kasich.
yeah, Ted Cruz is very good rhetorically and in a debate, and somehow he just, I mean, I think he mostly won over voters through that. I guess maybe his promises too in his base, but I thought he just like somehow just bullied his way through the debates and got a lot of support that way. And so what I'm expecting, what I was one of the redeeming qualities of this election that I was looking forward to was watching Joe Biden and Donald Trump debate, because I was like, oh my God, this is going to be awesome. And of course, being straight up, like I I'm not crazy about Donald Trump, and I'm definitely not. I'm less crazy about Biden and where he's at, like not seeming to be very good with speaking right now compared to where he was in the past. Like I was really looking forward to this being entertaining TV, but I do want to go on record saying that I'm pretty sure that I really think that Joe Biden's probably just going to ride COVID into avoiding the debates, and that would probably be the best strategy for him going forward, is to avoid those debates. Because if Donald Trump performs like he did in the debates before, I do not see that going well for the
Have they said
Biden
anything
campaign.
about it? Like, how could you even avoid it now? Because you could do it like we're doing right now. I mean, you could. I mean, it'd be harder
Yeah,
to moderate, I guess, but
I don't know. That's just
actually, it'd be
I
easier
was
to
talking.
moderate. You can just mute people.
Yeah, that would actually. I mean, it would work well. I I don't know. I just, it was going through my mind because I was thinking that's like what I've been thinking too. And there's no sports going on. I'm like, God, this debate's gonna be pretty fun to watch. Like Donald Trump is just gonna dig in, he's and all this stuff. I mean, to be fair to all people who are listening, like I guess there's reasons from my or from my perspective, I would, and which is biased, is anyone's is that I guess I would, if I were, if I had to, if I have a gun to my head, I'm probably taking Donald Trump based strictly on a less regulation and like economic standpoint. And he's done some decent things as far as war goes, but he's also kind of up the drone strikes as far as what I read on reports and whatnot. But anyways, just for entertainment value, like it would be very interesting for me, very entertaining to watch Donald Trump go at it with Joe Biden. And anyways, when I was thinking about that, I'm like, dude, he's totally gonna just try and just use this to stay out of the debates, because I think it's the best strategic option for him. But
You
I don't
think?
know, maybe like you said, you could totally do it online. But I mean, he could say that he has symptoms. He could.
I, don't,
I
I
honestly
think
don't think it'll happen.
I think so. Because wasn't he on record saying like he looks forward to like he's welcoming the debate? Or
I
is it
think I
just
think Joe Biden wants to,
yeah.
because part of why I don't like him too is like his personality. I just feel like he's a fake tough guy. Like I don't know. Did you see the clip when he was talking to the dude who asked him some questions about AR-15s, and it was a steel worker in Michigan?
What was the outcome of it?
Um, Basically he's just like really condescending to the dude. The dude was like, he was kind of talking down to him, kind of putting his finger like in his face, and then he was like, um, and then the steel worker was like, "Dude, you work for me," like, and kind of did that shtick type thing,
Yeah,
and
I pay your
and
salary and
Joe,
whatnot.
I mean, he didn't say that, but he was basically saying like, like just he was like, "You're being really disrespectful to someone who's like, you're supposed to be representing me." I mean, that's not how he put it, but that's what he was intending. He was like, "You work for me,"
Yeah.
and he was, and and I don't remember, what did Joe Biden say. He said, I don't remember exactly, but basically the outcome was, it wasn't the greatest look for him, for Biden. He kind of seemed dismissive and condescending towards this dude, and yeah. So, anyways, I feel like just his personality kind of pisses me off. I feel like he's a fake tough guy, and like he's in some of the town halls, an actual like Democratic person, a person who was planning to vote Democrat, asked him. Like I watched one where this town hall, and yeah, this Democratic voter was asking him, just kind of challenging him, and was like, I feel like Elizabeth Warren or some other candidate at the time is a better fit, because I don't think I have this problem with you. How can you deal with this problem or be better with it, whatever? And it was kind of a conflict between the two of them, and him and Joe Biden and the guy in the audience kind of went back and forth, and then he just started like, I don't know, I don't want to say he threatened him, but he was, just puffing his chest up, and like they were talking about kicking. It was a dude, and they were talking about, you know, kicking each other's asses or something like that. And I was like, dude, you're 78. Just settle down, man.
Yeah.
Like, god dang.
He's got that
But
old school tough guy shtick.
yeah. So I don't know. It's not something I really like about him. I can see if you want Donald Trump to go down, that you might enjoy that about him. I do. So I do think what we were talking about. I do think he wants to debate. I think the rest of his team is going to be like, dude, you are not going to do as well as you think you are in this debate. But I do think Joe Biden probably wants to.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, from my point of view, and maybe it's just because I of my opinions on the president, but like I feel like there's a lot of people that want to put him on a stage and make him talk himself in whatever circles he might.
Yeah. You feel good about Joe Biden going on stage with Donald
I mean,
Trump?
I'm not saying I feel good about him doing it, but I think in any or in most cases I would feel good about somebody politically debating Donald Trump. Like,
Yeah.
so I'm not saying, and not to get into the details on that, or maybe we will, but I'm not saying I think Joe Biden is the best equipped person or probably the most effective person to do it. But I think if anybody's got chops to politically debate, Donald Trump would be the person to do it against because it's pretty predictable, like what route he's going to take.
Yeah. I don't know what I would use to describe his strategy. Um,
Who's his?
Donald Trump. I was, like this stuff is very interesting to me, like the debates and kind of like social dynamics and um like dominant like recess. I don't know how to describe it. Like people competing, but verbally and rhetorically, it's kind of like a sports game, but with words and posture, nonverbal communication, different things like that. So anyways, like when I was watching those Republican debates, I'm like, what is, I can't quite figure out exactly why he was effective. I mean, part of it comes from the crowd. Like if the crowd likes you for whatever stupid reason the crowd likes you, like that's power. I mean,
It's,
that helps you.
I think it's a
Um,
I think it's a sales thing because his whole persona is the art of the deal,
yeah,
and like an effective salesperson is looking for anything to get a yes and or like a positive reaction, and,
yeah,
and Trump would like gauge what would get any kind of reaction, like because to him I think it's the whole like there's no bad publicity, so any light that got shined on him he would take it and spin it in his favor. So
yeah,
anytime he could say something, and if that ended up just being like ad hominem attacks, then he would do it. Like it kind of won him momentum, like whether that's good or bad, or like whether you care about political norms or like what we've done usually in the past, like all that aside, like it got him momentum no matter what.
yeah. It it was really interesting to watch. I mean, even like Marco Rubio, I watched some interviews with him, and he's like one of those people, at least as I see him, that's too confident or too like inappropriately confident or like arrogant, you know. He kind of pisses me off, like the way that he talks about people, and
That Rubio
I
is.
don't know, governance. Yeah, I don't know, just um maybe I don't know what exactly gives me that impression. It's one of those things that I can't remember. You know, I flipping through different material and seeing different interviews and stuff, and I don't remember exactly why. But I think it was an interview that I watched where like a reporter, maybe it was Alex Jones. I think Alex Jones was asking him a question that he was trying to kind of piss him off with, but was actually like somewhat of a legitimate question. And I wanted to hear what his answer was, and he kind of just was like, "Nah, f you, I'm not dealing with
Yeah.
you." I don't know, maybe, and then it can't just be from that. But anyways, point being is I felt like Rubio is somewhat formidable and hard to get knocked off his base. And I just remember Rubio like looking like he was embarrassed up there and just uncomfortable. And yeah, I don't know. It's just interesting to me how he was able to bulldoze his way through those debates, and I can't quite put a finger on it. And in other times, like you can, it's like, okay, this person just put it out there, and but like he didn't make like great he didn't make like great political points or things like that. I mean, some of them were, but that's not how you like won it. So I don't know.
I'd be
But
curious what
anyways,
happens behind the scenes with those guys. And yeah, we can get past that, but like I'd be curious what happens behind the scenes, like when they're actually no cameras, no people watching them and stuff like that, how an interaction between Marco Rubio or Ted Cruz with Donald Trump would be, because like he said some really shitty things about them. And
yeah,
how like as a human being, or as I'll say like as a man, how do you get up there and then prop that guy up after he said some of the stuff like that were personal attacks on those guys? Like you can work professionally but also tell somebody like you're a prick.
yeah, it's yeah, that's a really weird thing too, because it's like it's easy to do, or more easy. Yeah, I wouldn't say easy. Like if you and I are playing basketball, or whenever anyone's playing basketball or football or something, like, you can take someone's head off, or even like MMA and stuff. You see those guys, like they kick the shit out of each other, and then they're like, good fight, bro, like because they know everything was just framed in that
Yep.
fight.
There's been
But
lots
then
of
when you start yeah, but then when you start like publicly in front of the whole world, like saying, I don't remember what did he say. Did he say Ted Cruz's wife was ugly or something like that?
either a dog or something like that. Yeah, it was something
Yeah.
for the looks.
Or you start like smearing someone, it's like, but maybe they do consider it, a game.
Or
They
just the
still
little
consider
stuff,
it somewhat of a
calling
game.
little Marco, little Rubio, something like that. Just
Yeah.
giving somebody a little name like that. I don't know.
He loves going with the nicknames.
Yeah.
That's one of his favorite things to do.
Yep. It's easy points.
Yeah. But, um, yeah, I don't know. Oh, wait, what were we talking about with Biden? That was,
We
I
we
forgot where
went
we were
from
going.
Tulsi to Biden to Trump in
Oh
the
yeah, yeah.
debates, so we kind of steered off.
Hold on though. Yeah, on that topic of yeah, how they act off stage. That's one of the things that kind of like I really wonder about too, because it's off-putting to me that they act like that, because that's, to me, it makes it seem more like show. And then if they're, I'd rather have it be genuine like dislike between two people than have them be like, come off stage and be like, it's all good, man, like, because, and then they're working together. And same thing, like, I wonder about that with Democrats and Republicans too, because I don't know a lot. I've know very few people from DC, and I mean, I know no one that I could call up and be like, what's it like in Washington DC? But I have, like, in passing conversations, or not passing conversations, but just random conversations throughout my life, had tidbits of people talking about, like, how people act in DC. Um, and I've heard people talk about them being like, that some of these Democrats and Republicans will go out to eat or whatever
Yeah.
together, and they're like, um, it's all good. Kind of like the way that maybe John McCain and Joe Biden used to be with each other. Like, oh, they're very political, like, rivals or opposition, but they were, and that was framed in, like, mutual respect. But at the same time, some of those people, I don't know. I just, I don't like it, because it makes it seem like it makes it seem even less genuine, and just like they're in on
Yeah,
this
like it's literally
together.
more of a show, like a show,
Yeah.
an actual show, a production.
And maybe what it is maybe it makes me feel like it's more us versus them, which is probably one of the things that I agree on the most, like, that I can reach across any aisle on. And I think maybe as average Americans we should probably do more of, is like, okay, or that's one of the things that I would hammer home the most, I think, is like, especially right now with the way that they've done some of this COVID stuff. It's like, stop playing around with people's lives, and like, they just trying to jam all this stuff into these COVID bills to try and use it as leverage. Like, okay, if you're not gonna fund our pet projects, then we'll try and make you look bad and paint you
Right.
as the people who aren't giving people the relief they need.
Yeah.
It's like unbelievable.
Well, and that's not the first time, and it's not the last that they'll use an immediate crisis to leverage other things. So
Yeah, shoehorn
it
stuff in
sucks.
there. Yeah. But yeah, the debates are an interesting topic. But what so yeah, what about Tulsi? I felt like there was something that I was going to ask you before that, but anyways, yeah, I am interested. You said you're not a fan of Tulsi. I was thinking, like, honestly, when I was watching the debates, I was thinking, maybe Andrew Yang, like you said. I don't know, Pete Buttigieg. I don't know, maybe those people, but I thought Tulsi Gabbard was probably the strongest candidate, and she got a taste of the Ron Paul treatment from what I saw in the few debates, like, just less time being able to talk and the way the media treated her.
Yeah, I forget what it was. If it was because she was anti Medicare for all. Was that what it her first big push, like to
I thought
differentiate?
I thought that she was. I guess I'd have to look it up, but that was one of the things that I, because
So
I
I'm not gonna lie, like I've told you before, like I don't. We've talked about because of past conversations that we've had about her.
yeah,
There's other people that have been involved that have said like she's a Russian student
yeah,
and this and that,
I
and
might have confused, or might have taken something that you said and
easy
blurred the two together.
easy to do because there's a lot of that stuff. But um, I can't. It's been long enough now where I honestly can, and she's been out of the picture enough where I can't even tell you like what my specific griefs were with her. But
But it wasn't Russia.
no,
Okay,
no,
good.
I thought she was more of a I don't know. She seemed like a placeholder type person. Like I didn't feel any sincerity out of her or anything like that. Like that's why I was worried when she started to get tied into the conversation with Andrew Yang because I got like totally opposite feelings of her than I did from him, and
Mm.
I don't know. It like took my excitement away from him if that was going to be who was paired up with him, and I don't know who I would have hoped would have been paired up with him if he would have had more momentum. But
Yeah.
I don't know. I thought Tulsi was a little bit, but and I guess I didn't quite understand like what her big appeal was to a lot of
The
the
appeal to the appeal
non-traditional
to
Democratic voters.
yeah, I mean, I thought you were gonna go with where because she was big in like the libertarian liberty, circle people.
Yeah,
The appeal there was definitely the anti-war stance. That's I mean, and it pretty much ended there because, um, yeah, of course, most people that are in the same general area that I am aren't. I mean,
I was really
I
wrong.
don't think.
I guess she was strongly supports Medicare for all.
Yeah, that was one of my negatives for her was that she wanted the Medicare for all because I just don't think that's going to be a great idea. But
Well, I
um,
know that that looks silly now, but I honestly can't tell you. It's not like I was super passionate about it or anything, but she's kind of, I don't know, she was a non-factor more for me, not to be a dick about
yeah,
it, but
yeah, I guess at the time, and when you're talking in the form of text and typing on phone and Facebook conversations, whatever, it's you can't get that much information across. So I had the perception, that, rightly or wrongly, that it was something to do with something else, like some kind of like the garbage that the media did run on her, like something they did put. I think that was the New York Times, so that she was connected to Russia somehow, and it's like really like she served in the military, like
yeah.
I don't even know, like, and then but people believe that, and then I don't know, it took away
Well, I
from
think
her
they
support,
had,
I'm sure, but
and this would be, so this is where I'm aware, like it'd be super hypocritical of me because I just said that in one hand that I would be open to seeing what Kamala Harris is going to do as far as, you know, uh, criminality and things like that moving forward. But I was also critical of Tulsi Gabbard because of her like past LGBT views and stuff like that.
yeah.
And
Oh
which
yeah, that was one critique, but yeah, she did like
walked it back
recant
and
or
just,
whatever,
yeah,
yeah. um yeah,
that was the first thing I
that's
remember hearing about her was like the LGBT stuff. And then I don't know, fair or not, after that, I kind of just I dismissed her.
yeah. Do you think so? My perception was when I saw some of that stuff, I was like, and not just you, but like I've told you, like I think I've told you before, is sometimes you're unfairly on the receiving end of actually you're actually one of the people that I can express how I feel about or what I think about like liberal thought, and you're an outlet who can actually take it versus someone in my personal life, whether that's work, home, or whatever. It's like
Mm-hmm.
um you can't say some of those things to people without them getting upset and possibly um, their relationship being affected. But
Yeah.
um, yeah, my perception was in seeing some of that, I was like, the media just smears her with this stuff, like this stuff from like 20, I don't know how long ago it was, 5-10 years ago or something. And I think her dad,
Yeah, it had to do
it
with
seemed to
her.
be influenced by her dad.
Yep.
Like her dad was more conservative culturally,
Yep.
and it was like, okay, she's like clearly very progressive, to that's where like that's my negative for her, is that she's progressive, and that's what she's being like painted as, not progressive enough by the media. And then like I said, my perception was that people in Democratic voters were like eating up kind of what the media was saying about her. But
I don't remember
I
what it
think
was, but she said some things that seemed like it. I mean,
I think it
I'm
was
not.
conversion, something about conversion therapy back then. I don't know what she said about it
Yeah,
or what, but
I think she said some things that, and I'm not saying that this is a legitimate knock, but she was saying things that painted like her political opponents in a positive light, and I don't think that really was received very well. Like,
no, probably not.
yeah, so
But the other parts of that, as far as the vice president and your thoughts on Kamala and Joe. Um, it's interesting to me watching that because one of the things, being a person who knows or feels disenfranchised somewhat or mostly, and like, okay, the candidates that I like to be represented by aren't going to win anytime
Right.
soon. So like I'm still represented in a certain way by other districts like Justin Amash and Rand Paul and Thomas Massey are probably the three guys that I like pretty, 95% or 95 to 100%. I would be like, yeah, I agree with the way that they're viewing things. Um, but anyways, being someone who's used to that, I see a lot of times where I think people are like lie to themselves and talk themselves into liking a candidate. Like I'm seeing some of this pro Kamala stuff, and I'm like, really? Like, do you really believe that? Like, okay, it's one thing to say we think Donald Trump is really bad for X, Y, and Z reasons, and so she's the lesser of two evils. Which, of course, I have critiques of that theory, or that line of thought, but it's not the worst line of thought either. Like, there's pros and cons to it, but like, it's interesting that some people are like really putting her up on this pedestal of this awesome vice president pick. And there's other people who are like more like you, the way you talked about it, are like, okay, she's definitely not my favorite, but there are some positives to her election, or to her appointment too, or her, whatever you want to call it,
And I don't even know if
election.
it's necessarily positives. I think it's just being hopeful. Like, because I think I'm hoping that the people that get put in these positions are receptive to what people want to see, as far as like, you know, her big strikes are, her history as a prosecutor and like convicting people of nonviolent crimes, putting them away, being a part of that whole thing, and seeing if she can come around on that now is a huge part of that. And I don't know. So Andy and I, who were just
Mm-hmm.
talking on the way home. Uh, we were golfing today, and on the way back, we ended up talking about this because I told him I was going to be talking with you, and we both said the exact same thing, that he and I are not going to fall into the trap that we did in 2016 and just bag on the candidates, because like, and I don't know if this is a question or not, but like in 2016, I had to hold my nose to go in and vote for her. I hated every second of it. Like,
Yeah.
and I don't feel too much differently now. And it's not because I back, you know, I can't even tell you what percentage of like their platform that I truly back. And it sucks because it's like, this is mostly going to be a vote for me this year because of how much like I'm legitimately scared for like our norms and actual democratic process. Like, so that's what I hope, whether it's too late or not, for, and you know what I mean by this, but somebody like you, that like my shift that way can be for real and not just opportunistic, so that when Joe Biden and Kamala Harris become into power, and then I can forget about all this stuff and just be happy that we can throw our weight around in that way. Like, I hope to hold them to the same standard, that I hope that they don't trash the powers of their positions as it's happened now and in the past, but when I wasn't as receptive to it.
I'm not. I'm following, I think, most of what you're saying. Like you're talking about some of the things that you and I have talked about with Obama or something like that.
Well,
Or you mean
no,
like not being as critical of Democratic candidates as?
you and I in private conversations recently have talked about how, because I've wondered, like, Mitch, I feel like I'm in line with you on XYZ thought. Like, why
Yeah.
are you not on board with me? And like, hell yeah, Wood, you got it. And instead, you're like, you know, well, about time, dude. I don't really care. And I know that's not the case.
No, no, that's. I mean, that might be true in some cases or not. I'm laughing at myself right there, not you.
Yeah, no, well, I mean, I don't care. You can laugh. Like, I'm purposely trying to like poke fun at myself for this too, because there was obviously years where I would have never admitted or realized that kind of stuff. But like, it's been a weird thing lately, like trying to come to grips with the fact where I'm like, holy crap, like what this person did, whether it's Donald Trump, Mitch McConnell, or any of his crew, where I'm like, this is a really dangerous precedent to set moving forward. And then watching you in the back, like, yeah, like you've seen this before.
See, that's so a couple of things that I think of when you talk about that. That one, that's the perfect example of where like you're unfairly the outlet for me to express some frustrations towards the liberal end of the spectrum of things. And two, like I part of what's been difficult for me in the last 4 years with this is like, so I mean there's quite a bit wrapped up into it, but try to make it succinct and to the point. As of lately, like I said to you before, I view the left as more of a threat to freedom than I do of Donald Trump and his crew. Although, so what I found myself having to try to be aware of is not um, how do I put this? Donald, not like with people making really bad critiques of Donald Trump, where I'm like, okay, there's legitimate things to critique him about, and this is what you critique him about. So then I find myself being like, is he that bad? Or because clearly these people are like just out of left field making terrible critiques of him that are totally illegitimate. For example, like the one where he talked about at the Charlottesville thing, like everything. Sometimes I wonder if I'm in the Twilight Zone, because like he said none of the white supremacists, the KKK, all those people, like, no, I fully condemn them, blah blah blah. Like that's not.
Did he say
I do
he
not.
fully condemns anybody out there though? I don't. I
Yeah,
think he
that's
avoided all that.
see. This is what I'm talking about. Like this is in um, this is where it's like it's what is going on with information, because I've looked at this like 4 different times where I'm like, okay, I'm like, because like you just asking me that right now, I'm like, now as soon as I'm done with this, I got to go look and make sure that I'm not going effing insane,
Mm.
because I've read it, I watched it, and he said, like, clearly enough for me to bring this up as an example.
Yeah.
Like he said, I condemn them. That's not who I'm talking about when I'm talking about there's fine people on both sides. I condemn those people totally. What I was talking about was people who wanted the Robert E. Lee statue to stay up for reasons that were more acceptable, depending on what you consider acceptable, you know.
Yeah.
But that's what he was saying, and then it was painted as like, as far as I understand it, and the information that I consumed, then it was painted, and like you'd see Don Lemon talking about it, and he's like, and I watched an interview where it's kind of the same thing that's happening with you and I right now, where the guy's like, and Don Lemon was completely certain, like adamant about this, and the guy's like, he said that he condemned those people totally, and that's not who he was talking about when he was talking about the fine people.
Right.
um
And I don't know. I'll do the same. Like you said, we won't go into the debate side of things, but like, and truthfully, like I guess just to say it, like that's what I remember is that he sidestepped everything and said something along the lines of like, there's very fine people on both sides, and when people asked him to straight up condemn, white supremacy and white nationalists and stuff like that, he avoided it and sidestepped and never truly did it. So I'll be curious to.
yeah, yeah, look, it's we could do a whole thing. You and I might have to have another conversation about this like dynamic right here is what I find to be one of the most damaging things for us right now, because it makes it like I think about trying to do some of these conversations and have conversations, and I, or even more like debate style, or where you're digging into information more, and it's like I
Hmm.
don't even want to spend like 4 hours trying to figure out what the actual, like, because you just don't know what information, whether the information you're getting is biased or not, and just the level of trust is so low that it's difficult to sift through all the bullshit.
And that's
But
maybe that's a topic for another conversation too. Is like, not to pick on you for that, but that's been a pet peeve of mine lately. Is people saying like, "Oh, well, it's so hard to figure out like what's true and what's not, or what to believe anymore." And it's like, is it really that hard? Is it that hard to figure out factual information right now, or like are people just that uh, reluctant to move off their position?
yeah, I do think it is. I've pretty much went to just trying to get like factual news from Reuters and the
Mhm.
AP, like Wire. Um, but
Because
I mean,
I
I don't
think
know.
right
Yeah,
now like, again, not to get emotional on what we're talking about, but like one of my biggest pet peeves at the moment is is just the whole concept of like, well, I do my own research, and it's like, no, like you find things that
yeah,
confirm your already held belief. Like there's a difference
right.
between doing your own research and like fact checking your conversations and your debates and just finding stuff that like confirms what you already believe. People aren't receptive to new information right now, and that's really harmful.
No, I think, I mean, both sides can be guilty of it. I think if you're
Oh yeah, I'm
honest with
guilty of it.
yourself, yeah, if you're honest with yourself, you can combat that more. And one of the things, I guess, I egotistically or not, whatever the place, the I think it helps try to pursue the truth is I want to be right more than I want to be more than I want to be an ideologue. So even if the libertarian or the my political philosophical position is X, like I think to myself, like when I'm doing or trying to pursue what I actually think is happening, like, do you want to be an ideologue and just try to bend reality to fit your narrative, or do you want to actually be correct about expressing what the truth is? And I don't know, that
Yeah.
that's what I guess try to do. But even in doing that, I think it's really difficult. So if you're posing as someone who's like can do their own research and has no difficulty um, being able to tell if you're being biased or in confirmation bias, like you're just mostly lying to yourself.
Yeah.
Um,
I
yeah,
think I have a tendency to be more optimistic with like people's intentions and stuff than a lot of other people are. Like I, I've said this in a lot of conversations with people that aren't like completely in line with my way of thinking and stuff like that. That I feel like I am a little more. I don't think it's naive, but I think I'm optimistic on like people's intentions. Like the distrust of government baffles me a lot, and I don't think it's because like I understand it, but I guess it baffles me because it's like that's something that we can affect. Like there's real people that are in that, and I guess just sometimes I don't understand why everybody always thinks that somebody's out to like do the worst. And I think I
yeah,
have more of a trust in government and institutions than a lot of other people, so that kind of starts me off at a different starting point than a lot of others, and that's why my conversations end up like a little iffy sometimes.
what do you mean iffy? Like I would say that makes the conversations better,
Well, no,
don't
because I
you?
think like I don't know. I This is a hard one to put like to articulate. Like I've told
I know
people,
what you mean by having by thinking people have better intentions, or you try to consider their better intentions, because I think the same thing, like even with people who are like Marxists, where I'm like, that's complete opposite, like that's if I could pick one group of ideology that I don't like the most from an emotional standpoint, not even like a philosophical, like that would be the one. And I can still think of like, I do know that they aren't people who want to commit evil in the world for the most part. They're
Yeah,
just, in my opinion,
but not
like
even
possessed by really, really, really bad ideas that they think are good ideas. And
so.
so I
Like,
do think like that's what I think of when you say that you think of people having the right intentions, or
right.
have,
So,
or you think of their intentions are mostly good.
yeah, and I think you kind of helped me into where to actually be able to talk about this the way I want to. Like that's the really broad perspective. Like you bring up Marxists and you know good intentions, but huge disagreements within that. But like look
Yeah.
at the $600 unemployment thing. Like on the surface, I trusted that number like a lot more than a lot of other people did because I like what's brought my mental health to like the gutter lately has been like
Yeah.
the instant thought of like watching the people around me cheer against their neighbors and everything because they're making more than they did, you know, with their job before that and stuff like that. And I was like, well, wait, there's got to be a reason for this. And you know, learning that the reason that $600 was reached is because $900 a week was the average national salary up to that point, and then $300 a week was the salary that or the amount of unemployment that people were getting, and then the difference was just made at that point because they systemically like they couldn't do a percentage based system where you get 90% of your income or something like that. Like they couldn't build that system in that short amount of time, so they just said let's get people to the average salary using extra unemployment benefits. So $300 is what people made in unemployment before that, so they said let's add another 600 to it. And for some people that shot them up, and for other people that was less than they were making. But that was my like what I look at, not to pat my own back, but like I looked at that as like the balanced approach to it, where other people were like, well, that's really stupid because now we're rewarding people for staying home. And I was like, I don't know. That's just where my to me that was like not a huge issue because I trusted the intention of it, and a lot of people like took a huge issue with that.
Yeah. What were those? I saw something on like the threads that you had posted about that, but what was the where was the um emotion directed to on that, like towards the administration or towards people accepting it, or what?
Um,
Like when you say that it bothered you, which where were they directing their like frustration to?
I think it was more so, and this is why it bothers me is because there wasn't like a an entity or a person that people were directing their frustration to about people getting $600 additional a week in unemployment. It was this idea that people don't deserve $600 a week in unemployment. And I know we're not getting into like paying for it and like the source of it and stuff like that,
Yeah,
but
I mean that's
the part that has gotten me down so much lately is just the fact that people automatically assumed that people shouldn't get that much, and it's like, well, it's kind of a necessity right now. Like
yeah.
it's contributing to the recession that we're in. But I don't know, I'm kind of taking it off the rails with that. Like it's that could be a
Well,
conversation.
there's a lot of ways you can go with that. I mean, but I'm yeah, staying focused
Yeah.
on the on the part of it that I think you're focusing on, which is the communication between people and the disagreement on, what would be the right thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Like
of course, there's all kinds of political opinions you can have on that, like whether people should be getting bailed out and how much should be getting bailed out and all that stuff. But yeah,
I
I'm
guess
following where you're going with it.
put at its most simple, like, and not to get wishy-washy on it, but like how we stop pitting one another, like us against one another. Like I've made some other comments too online. I've stayed away from social media a little bit more lately than I have in the past, and it's done good things. But like I've kind of lamented about we used to live in a period where like we were uplifting towards one another, and I don't want to get into the debate side of it because this naturally turns into like social programs uplifting one another. But like we used to kind of cheer that stuff on, and now we're kind of in this like everyone for himself. You know, I get mine, you worry about you kind of world, and I guess that's my concern is how we get out of that.
Yeah. I yeah, things are definitely bad in that way
Well,
right now.
feel free to cut that. You can say like we took a break here.
Oh, it's all good. Um I was trying to think where I was what got us started on this was you talked about kind of like my reaction to some of the things you posted, you know, like you were talking about like not giving as much. It's not what you were it's not what you were saying, but I was thinking you were going in the direction of it, like not being as critical of conservatives, or you and I were in agreement on some things, and I was like, well, it's about time, that type of attitude or
Mm-hmm.
whatever. So and we got off onto whatever other interesting thread that was on, but um, being someone that's disenfranchised about it, like I have already seen some of this, like some of the things that are that people on the left are concerned about as far as tyrannical and other administrations, and I'm like, okay, this is similar or the same stuff that was kind of poo-pooed when I brought it up before, and I've come to the point now where I'm like, this is the same trajectory we've been on the whole time, and kind of where I am now is it's like I can, you know, shout from the rooftops about tyranny and things that I think are bad, like you know, homeland security and um spying on American citizens, the Patriot Act, that type of thing, where it's like that stuff is messed up to me. I don't think that should be going on. I don't think we should be having secret courts, FISA, and so like I feel like we're already kind of on the same trajectory regardless. So to me, Donald Trump isn't as much of a threat as people on the left perceive him. But one of the difficult things in the last 4 years for me has been um, like for example, too, Justin Amash has been really critical of Donald Trump, whereas Thomas Massey pissed him off by stepping up in that right at the beginning of the shutdown when he what did he do? He made everyone come to Congress to vote on the bill, and they actually ended up still not having to. But right at the beginning of the corona, when people were more scared of it and we knew less information about it, he made them come to work. And Donald Trump was really pissed off at Thomas Massey about it. But and then Rand Paul has kind of been like kind of taking a strategy of focusing on the positive parts of his relationship with Donald Trump and like things that he's done well. Um, so I have like these three people that I kind of watch as far as what they're saying and what they're doing, and kind of following their line of thought. And they have three different kind of viewpoints on Donald Trump. And so it seems to me there are some very legitimate concerns about him as far as abusing power. And then to me, it makes it hard because you also have people like, I'll use Don Lemon and like Brian Stelter, for example, because I just think they're shitty journalists. And like they're just going nuts on TV every night and about some stupid stuff like getting his tax returns or something like that. And it's like, that's like, why don't you critique something of substance? And then so then I get into this where I'm like, I got to try and figure out what actually is legitimate and what isn't. And I mean, that's a abstract concept. I can't think of any concrete things at the time, but you know, I think that's kind of where it's put a person like me in the last 4 years with Donald Trump and with people who are really, really vehemently against him. And in the context of like, I already kind of felt like this was the trajectory. Like Donald Trump isn't going to necessarily make this trajectory worse or better. Um,
But do you really
So
feel like he hasn't worsened the trajectory of like the abuse of power of the presidency? Like
I
maybe,
don't.
or is it just like, is he more open about it than other presidents might have been?
I honestly don't know. Not to if talking about this type of stuff actually helps me like explicitly remember and kind of sort all this information out a lot better than reading stuff does, because if I read through and scroll through stuff, it just turns into mush in my brain that I
Right.
can't really actually speak about. So all these things that have happened in the past with Obama and Bush and stuff, like it's not stuff that I have these kind of conversations with regularly to where I could, say make good comparisons like some people on TV do, where they bring up stuff from like the 60s and 70s and reference all these different points in history. But um yeah, I don't know. I don't see anything more. I guess I see that. I feel like there's things that were pretty corrupt in the Obama administration, like droning an American citizen, a pretty big deal that didn't really. I mean, that should have. I'm still like, okay, if Donald Trump legitimately should have been impeached, and Justin Amash was for that, whereas like Rand Paul and Thomas Massey were totally against the impeachment, and I was kind of like, I can kind of see both sides, but I was leaning more towards Rand Paul and Thomas Massey, and like that it wasn't really evidence quid pro quo, because quid pro quo happens, as far as I can tell, pretty frequently in the political world. But anyways, like comparing the two, like quid pro quo and Obama droning an American citizen, I was like, why was that not an impeachable offense? But Republicans and Democrats were both, for that type of foreign policy for the most part. So yeah,
Well,
I guess I feel like there's hasn't been a whole lot more corruptive or abuse of power from Donald Trump than from past administrations.
and I get that when you go like, when you try to rank like the how bad something is that other presidents have done and stuff like that, but like from my perspective, it looks like different types of things. So like if you go back to, you know, uh, George W, like, his decision making in taking us into war during his presidency, or you go back to Clinton and the effect of him and his crime bill and three strikes and all that stuff, and how that impacted our incarcerated population and just the prison system and things like that. Or even one of the big things like with Clinton that I really hate is, I won't get into the details of it, but like he's a huge part of the reason that CEO pay, just exploded. And it was an unintended effect of a financial decision that he made. Like, then you get to Obama, and his foreign policy decisions and stuff like that. That all seems like poor decision making, or even in some cases, like you said, like inhuman decision making or mistakes and things like that. But the thing that's concerning about Trump for me is it's like the blatantly obvious stuff of like, right now putting the guy in as postmaster general who, has competitive ties against the, US Postal Service, and then is also now like removing machinery from the post office and like slowing down the process of stuff like that, and like saying like, oh, we're not going to do mail-in ballots. And it's like, that seems like a very obvious thing to me of like, here's how I foresee myself losing. I will eliminate, that factor. Or like, um something else, what would be another thing with Trump, like,
Well, let me stop you on that one there too. Like I've just, scrolled is the word to use. I haven't like in
yeah,
depth. And I've seen one of the things that's interesting too, kind of being in the liberty circle, is there's like more left leaning libertarians throughout this who have been like kind of where you are, and even further. Like they've been like, I'd kind of discount them at this point where I'm like, okay, they're making critiques that I don't think are valid.
yeah,
And then there's people on like the right side who are like pro Trump, and there's people who are in the middle who are like kind of where I am, where like I don't think he's great, but don't see the doomsday kind of part of it, and that's being a little bit melodramatic, but like you
Oh
know
no,
what I
I get
mean.
it.
Um,
Because I mean, and that's the
so
same.
so I've seen stuff posted about like that being really bad, like like you were kind of talking about, like he's trying to avoid losing by basically
Well,
like
avoiding a free and fair election, which seems like a tenet of what we do.
yeah, well, it's what a tyrant would do. But and then there's another part of me who's like, dude, I don't give two shits about the USPS. Maybe that's me just being dismissive, but I don't like I just briefly read on it and I'm like, um I don't see maybe there's something that I'm missing. It wasn't like a, this is like 10 minutes of me reading about
Yeah,
USPS and trying
I
to
mean,
figure
that's
out
what
like,
I mean.
do
I
I
would
think this is
admit,
well, do I think this is a legitimate organization that we absolutely need, or do I really not give a shit about the USPS? And I was like, okay, I mostly don't give a shit about the USPS in
well,
this.
yeah, and that's a whole nother conversation. Like, you know, that could be something where we debate whether the postal service is, you know, necessary or not. Like,
Yeah,
and we won't even get into the stance on it now, but it's just the fact that it became a politically relevant thing that the United States Postal Service is going to be used to transmit ballots that historically lean Democrat, and means that he's going to get, you know, more of a hit through that. And he's like, oh, well, this is something that I can control. I'm going to put this guy in control of that office. We're going to remove machinery and we're going to slow down the process. And we're going to, even if it's just to the point of like slowing it down enough where he can say like, look at this thing's a mess, and delegitimize the election. Like, that's the kind of stuff where I'm like, other people didn't do that.
yeah,
and,
no,
and that's,
that's definitely true. I mean, I'll
that's
definitely
not
give you
the
that, and that's
downfall
part
of,
of me where that's part of me where like I kind of, I don't know, I don't want to watch the world burn. I'm not one of those type of people. Like, where I'm just like, F it, the system needs to burn to the ground before we can do it over. I'm not on that boat, but I do like, I can find some entertainment in like, okay, the system's not going to, like, I don't know. There's a part of me who thinks the system's very corrupted. And I'm like, okay, if this, like you said, like where he's basically throwing a wrench in it and like, oh, just the haphazard, I think it's funny in some ways, but
I think
I
right,
can see how it can be concerning to some people too. And I think,
just to button up that thought, I think that right now, like, I think too many people are complacent or like rely on the fact that we have a system in place and that it will fix itself and that it will work itself out. And I think there's too many variables being either like exploited or removed or shifted in different ways where like the system is going to be functionally different. Like, people are used to a system with checks and balances, and probably shouldn't use that word because it's going to take it down the wrong path. But like, I think the checks and balances are being a little bit eroded, and that's why, like you said, it's just, that's where I come to try to understand like why my meeting you in the middle of being concerned about all these, you know, atrocities, like why maybe I'm just getting what I deserve and like feeling a little bit crazy about like, holy shit, why is this not uh
why aren't people taking it more seriously?
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. There's parts of it that could be petty, and I try to pay attention to that. But
Yeah.
yeah, there's certain parts of me where I'm like, okay, and that's like when you and I were talking in private message about, um, like people getting put in vans in Portland, where I was like, if they're destroying property, like it's okay. If they're unmarked vans, like yeah, it's, I don't know, sketch. Like I'm not a huge fan of the feds in general. Like
Right.
we could definitely cut down on most of those agencies,
Did
like
you
the
see that
ATF and
video?
whatnot.
Like, it was literally dudes with khakis throwing people in vans.
No, I didn't see the video. I
Yeah,
mean, I
it was.
assumed that it was true. I wasn't doubting it, but I was like,
Yeah,
okay,
and that's what I wanted you to know. Like, I don't disagree with you. If somebody's breaking the law, like, you should face the consequences of that.
yeah.
Like, I wasn't parting with you on that fact. It was just
No,
the
I
mess
knew that.
that happened afterwards, where I was like, that's a little sketchy, like slippery slope stuff.
Yeah, no, I mean, and I would agree, and that's like part of that's where I'm talking about, like where I was like, okay, am I being petty right now, or because like that's, like welcome to the club. Like that's how I've felt for like the last, like 10 years basically.
Yeah.
But I understand, like you said, you've come around to agree on some things that had maybe given me frustration in the past. And but yeah, I mean, like I do think that's the part coming first full circle on that topic, like that would with kind of where someone like me has been in the last 4 years. It's like what's legitimate cause for concern and what's just a continuation of the trajectory that we've already been on, and is this like grounds to be like, well, I need to do something now in some way, shape, or form.
Right. Well, in case anybody's confused by that, like the reason we've talked about this before is because I've said like, "Okay, I'm meeting you at the same place. Why are you not like jumping in with me?" And you said before that you think that it's because, and not, hopefully not me like specifically now, but like you've said that your fear is that people are opportunistic in meeting you in that place, because once you jump in with them at that point, you're afraid that they're gonna, you know, get to the point of power, like, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris get elected,
Oh yeah.
and then all of a sudden they don't care about that stuff because it's their guys, and they're pushing their things.
Yeah. I mean, that's definitely something that,
I get that, and I guess I'm just telling you, like, me personally, and I hope a lot of other people who are on the left are like going to hold themselves accountable to hold other people to a higher standard as far as like our political norms and keeping things on the up and up.
yeah. I mean, there's definitely some things, I think, generally speaking, from where I was coming from on that, you're mostly right. There's definitely things I would expand on that. Like there's, in the way that I've expressed that, kind of like I'm not just gonna be naively jump in your boat or let you jump in my boat. There's definitely things to be expanded on there, but that the general idea is not an unfair characterization of how I
Right.
felt about it.
Oh,
But
yeah, I wasn't trying to paint it for you.
no. Um yeah, it's an interesting place to be. Well, I don't know. I feel like this is probably a good place to end it. There's definitely plenty of things. I mean, I appreciate you sitting down with me and having this conversation. It was pretty fun. We'll definitely have to do it again because I was kind of concerned about how much depth we'd be able to get into because of the, like information gap. The biggest example in this conversation being the whole CNN thing, where like you and I can, in a conversation with people who aren't paid political commentators that can spend 8 hours researching a topic,
Yeah.
you get stuck on a factoid and it's like, what's reality here?
I don't
But we're able to
I
have
don't think
some
I don't
in-depth
think depth was the
conversations
issue.
on
I
it.
think I think next time I might have a notepad and kind of write down where our starting point was, so I can come back to that rather than taking you down a different road.
Yeah, I can go off on a tangent.
I think I felt like that was what I did. I go off.
Yeah, it happens. But yeah, man, appreciate joining me, and we'll have to do it again soon.
Yeah, thanks for asking me.